Hey, it's Jay, and it's finally time for me to rank my favorite franchise of all time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've been watching these movies since, 2008 when the first Iron Man came out. I remember it was at a friend's birthday party. I was like 10. I'm 21 now, so these movies have played a huge part of my life, all up to the ultimate conclusion we just had recently from last week, Endgame, which is breaking all sorts of records. So congratulations to that movie, and also happy 11 years to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what better way to commemorate this amazing universe than to rank all 22 films in the Infinity Saga? This is part 1 of 2, so I'm going to be looking at the bottom 11, and then the next part looking at the top 11. Keep in mind, I don't hate any of these movies. There are just things that some do better than others. So, without further ado, here's my ranking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Part 1.
Number 22. Thor: The Dark World.
So, coming in at number 22, we have Thor: The Dark World. This is definitely a step down from the first Thor, and the first Thor wasn't even that impressive to begin with, at least in my opinion. This mainly is attributed to the fact that with all this craziness going on in this movie, elves plunging the world into eternal darkness, portals in the final battle where they're going from world to world when the convergence happens, which if you don't know, the convergence is when the 9 realms basically align, making transport between each of them easier and easier, which can lead to some pretty bad things. And it also introduces an Infinity Stone, which is, as we all know, a MacGuffin, one of 6 MacGuffins in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yet, this movie just doesn't feel complete. I feel like something's missing in terms of it being a Marvel movie. Because all that stuff sounds great, but it's not utilized properly. I feel like it has to do with the fact that Thor, once again, is forced to go to Earth in order to, have Jane Foster enter the picture, which I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I believe that Jane Foster is probably one of the reasons why the movies don't work, because Thor is constantly being grounded to Earth when we want to see him go on cosmic adventures. I know she was a great influence in the comics, but this is its own continuity. That's not to say that the movie's bad. There's excellent performances by everybody. I especially love, of course, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, but, everybody, the Warriors 3, Sif, Frigga gets a much more expanded role in this movie. Instead of just being, their mom, she actually has a key part in the movie where she has to protect Jane Foster because the ether possesses her. So there are great elements to this movie. The scene where they're trying to find Loki's secret portal to get back to Earth is thrilling because the Dark Elves destroy the Bifrost Bridge, which is their main method of getting out of Asgard. So it's got some thrilling chases and things like that. And the final battle does have its creativity with those portals, like I mentioned before. But in its entirety, this movie just kind of falls on its face. Not a bad film, but definitely the weakest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Number 21. Iron Man 2.
This is a sequel to Iron Man? Look, when Iron Man 2 was announced, we were all so excited to see what was going to happen with our favorite snarky superhero, Tony Stark. And then we got this. And much like Thor: The Dark World, it's not so much that the plot was sloppy, it's more so there was way too much going on for one movie. There were like 5 different story arcs in this movie. With, Rhodey stealing the War Machine armor, that was one plot, and then having it upgraded by Justin Hammer. Justin Hammer working with Ivan Vanko to, take out Tony Stark. The whole Tony's dying because of the palladium in his chest. The new element thing to create the new element to stop the palladium from killing him. And, of course, the whole Pepper Potts Tony love story. There was just way too much going on for one movie. This could have been multiple Iron Man films. The only savior here is Robert Downey Jr. Like, he can save any movie. And while, like I said, this movie isn't bad, it's just such a disappointment when seeing the massive scale of the first Iron Man movie. They basically recycled the villain of Obadiah Stane and then just funneled it into Ivan Vanko. And by that I mean they took a villain who wants Tony Stark's glory, uses Tony Stark's technology against him, and makes an Iron Man suit, and then they fight. This time Rhodey's involved. Rhodey has been recast in this movie from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle, who I love as Rhodey. I love Don Cheadle as Rhodey. He doesn't quite fit the military persona that Terrence Howard did, but I still love Don Cheadle as his performance. And I do have to defend one thing. A lot of people have a huge complaint with the new element scene, because Jarvis goes on to say that the element is impossible to recreate, and then Tony does it like that. But you got to realize something. Yes, it'd be impossible for you and me to recreate that element, but this is Tony Stark. He built, as Obadiah Stane said, he built an arc reactor in a cave with a box of scraps. So I don't think anything is out of the realm of possibility for Tony to build. And so I do have to defend that. All in all, not a bad film again, but still a serious, serious step down from Iron Man 1. Whereas Thor Dark World was a minor step down from Thor, this one feels like you fell down the stairs, and that's where Iron Man 2 landed you.
I want my bird.
Oh yeah, and then there's that.
Number 20. The Incredible Hulk.
What? This movie isn't number 22? Blasphemy. Look, I have to defend this movie because I've seen a bunch of lists where it's unfairly treated, and they only put it there because it has barely anything to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While that's true, I still have to defend the fact that this film isn't as bad as we lead on. Think about it this way. I always go into films with expectations. And with Hulk, it's not a hero that can really work on his own. So my expectations for the movie weren't that high. And they were met and exceeded just a little bit. There are some great scenes in this movie, two of which are extremely crucial to understanding the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe and Bruce Banner as a character. I really want to get into these 2 points in a separate video so I can just go off, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But one thing that goes against the movie is if you own the Blu-ray or DVD of the movie, you'll see that there are several scenes that they cut that could make you understand, why certain things happened. How did General Ross know to go to Culver University? Well, it turns out that Betty's boyfriend is the one that told Ross, but we don't see that. So it kind of makes no sense how they just know that Bruce and Betty would be going to Culver. Just little scenes like that would greatly improve the overall narrative of this movie. Another major gripe I have with this film is, look at Iron Man. Look at that movie that came out the same year. Iron Man looks great. It really looks like there's a man in a flying metal suit right next to you. With this film, Hulk looks pretty fake. Hulk doesn't look that amazing. I guess that can be attributed to the fact that at least Robert Downey Jr. could wear a cowl, so you can then just, CG that. Hulk, you just have to stare up at a person with like this backpack on with a Hulk head at the top and pretend like that's your vantage point. So it can be a little difficult to make look real, but those are my two real major gripes with the film. I really didn't mind it. I used to be so hypercritical of this movie, but watching it recently, I really started to find a new appreciation for it, especially with those two scenes. Please, guys, subscribe so you guys can see when I post that, because that's definitely in the project plans for a video. Just defending Incredible Hulk, because I feel like just me talking about it here in the countdown doesn't do it justice. Oh, and come on. That fight in Harlem, sure they do the whole, villain and hero have similar powers and they're fighting. But come on, it's like a monster movie rampage through New York. Who doesn't love a good monster fight? With Godzilla movies being so popular, who doesn't love two monsters just butting heads and, causing a bunch of collateral damage? I sure love that fight scene. I think it's great. And so yeah, that's all I have to say about The Incredible Hulk. Give it a chance before you discount it.
Number 19. Thor.
Okay, so this segment's going to be kind of confusing because I'm going to be very conflicting on how I feel about the film. So just try to bear with me when I explain my points. I really love Thor's origin story as it's presented in this film. Thor is very hard-headed when it comes to being a king. So rather than just have him make one mistake and be like, all right, now you got to learn from your mistakes and keep him king, no, Odin banishes him to Earth to learn compassion, humanity, kindness, all great traits of a king, because Thor just marched into Jotunheim and almost broke a peace treaty that Odin and Laufey, the king of the Frost Giants, made. And, a peace treaty between two realms can be very beneficial to a planet, or a realm, as Asgard is. But therein lies the problem. It's a great origin story to strip Thor of these powers to get them back in an honorable way, but it's also what kind of feels off about the movie. We don't want to see Thor on Earth without his hammer being mortal. We want to see Thor flying around the realms with Mjolnir, blasting things with lightning, kind of like he did in Thor the Dark World, my apologies, where he spun his hammer and broke that giant rock monster. That's what we want to see. So, where the movie's strength is in Thor's origin story, it's also its weakness, because we want to see Thor exploring space. That's Thor. However, this movie gives birth to probably one of the best villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Loki. Loki's story is very tragic, as he was abandoned on Jotunheim. It's revealed that he's a frost giant, and Odin then takes him in as one of his own. But I love Loki. I know Loki's very easy to hate because of all the stuff he does, but that's what makes him a great villain. And it'd be quite some time before we find a villain that can rival Loki, which is why he was a great villain to be in the Avengers. But I'll talk about that a little later. So all in all, it's a great origin story, but with the great origin story comes the movie's downfall. The final battle, though, is great, and the graphics were impressive for 2011 standard. Asgard is breathtaking in how massive it feels. And that's all I have to say about that. Wonderful performances, too, and a heavy hitter like Anthony Hopkins joining the MCU sets the bar in motion for other great A-list actors to join later on.
Number 18. Captain Marvel.
This is a Phase 3 film? Look, I was so upset when I came out of the theater for Captain Marvel, and it met those standards. Those very low standards. It's not a bad film. I enjoyed myself. I even saw it twice. But it's just, I don't know what happened. What happened? That's a genuine question. What happened? I feel like it's partially due to the fact that Brie Larson's performance gets decimated by pretty much everyone surrounding her. When your lead character isn't putting on a strong performance, that spells trouble for your film. Maria Rambeau and Talos, the leader of the Skrulls, are two star pupils in this film. I thought they did fantastically. And in a scene where Maria Rambeau was telling Carol Danvers who she was, Brie Larson's performance was horrible in that scene. After such a powerful speech, I'd be in tears, because it's yes, that is who I am. The one thing I do have to say about this film is the twist on, who the bad guys are is phenomenal. I don't know how I didn't see it coming, but hey, it took me by surprise, and I'm very happy with that, because I needed something for this film. Goose is great. I mean, come on. It's a cat. I'm not going to say anything since this film is still in theaters, but Goose is great. I'm kind of indifferent on how Nick Fury lost his eye. I mean, it's funny, but it also kind of undercuts from some previous movies' lines, but I'm not going to hold that against the film. It also doesn't get its own continuity correct. It is stated several times that Nick Fury is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., when in Iron Man 1, we are told that it is still the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, and Phil Coulson says, we're working on it. It is great to see Coulson, too, back in the MCU. So, piggybacking off of that, they really should have, I don't know how it slipped past somebody, but they really should have looked at that first. And also, her powers are kind of just there's really no benefit to her unleashing her full ability. It's kind of just oh, yeah, cool. Done. I'm super powerful now. There's no, struggle. There's no anything. It's just oh, yeah, bye. Done. I'm powerful now. And then she just wrecks everything. Before I end this segment, Ronan is the most wasted character in any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to date. I'm not talking about his Guardians appearance. I'm talking about this appearance right here. There's no reason for him to be in this film because he's in it for like 5 minutes. If you're going to have Ronan, have Ronan. That's all I got to say. Next film.
Number 17. Iron Man 3.
Alright, I'll give you guys an A for effort. This is definitely a step up from Iron Man 2. But it's nowhere close to Iron Man. I think it's actually a very interesting screenplay, though. Take Tony Stark, who had a near-death experience in New York when he flew the nuke through the portal, and pretty much make him pathetic. He has panic attacks. Tony Stark doesn't have panic attacks. It's Tony Stark. And actually have most of the film having no Iron Man action at all. I really like that because, think about it, all the rest of the Avengers can fight. Well, except for Bruce Banner, but, you know. Tony Stark is probably the least experienced in fighting because even though Bruce didn't fight in his movie, at least he was trained on how to fight. Tony never really did. So to have him have to fend for himself without his armor to protect him was actually really, really cool. But the big gripe about this film that every fan talks about is the Mandarin twist. What is my take on it? I feel like they could have done it way better, but the way they handled it was just kind of meh. I like Trevor Slattery being an actor, but they should have had him be like kind of like a stunt double. Someone who looks very similar to the Mandarin, and when Tony thinks he has him on the ropes, be like, no, there really is a Mandarin, though. Aldrich Killian can be in cahoots with him, but it should be revealed that he was still the one pulling the strings. He was the one who launched Extremis. He was the one who told Aldrich Killian to go see Tony Stark because he wanted Tony Stark's, he wanted Tony Stark on his side so he could help build something else. That would have been really, really cool. But the way they handled it here, kind of lame. It's also funny that this film's plot is basically The Incredibles. You got, someone's idol who treats them poorly, drives them to villainy, and then they capture him. They get him tied up, even in the same pose, with his arms up like this. It's just, it's like looking in a mirror. But I still like it because I love The Incredibles. So if anything is going to share the same plot, I'm going to love it because The Incredibles is great. I also really, really enjoy the final battle with the homecoming what's it called? The housewarming protocol. There it is. Where all the Iron Man suits that Tony is compulsively building just come and fight these like fire-breathing terrorist bombers that can grow back limbs. It's so preposterous, but that's what makes it great because it's a Marvel movie. I also really like Tony's character arc grow as he's like, this is what's also putting the person who I can't live without in harm's way. I think a lot of people are, upset with that line because they're like, well, then in Age of Ultron, he has his suits again. Yeah, but there's one line in Civil War that explains all that away. When he's talking to Cap after giving him the pens, Franklin D. Roosevelt's pens, and he's like, I wanted to stop, but turns out I couldn't because it's Tony Stark. He's the most guilty character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He feels like everything is on him. So to blow up his suits, he's like, nah, I can't do that. Because now I'm not protected. I may have taken the arc reactor out, but I still have to make another one that can work, outside of my body rather than internally because I can't stop. Now I'm unprotected. You're unprotected, Pepper. And so that's why he goes right back to building suits. Because like he said in Civil War, I can't stop. So great step up from Iron Man 2, but still a step back from Iron Man. Take it how you feel about the Mandarin twist, but that's my 2 cents on this movie.
Number 16. AntMan and the Wasp.
The first thing I'm going to say about this film is I love the connections that these characters have. Not only with the main characters, but with the main villain as well. Allow me to elaborate. So first you have Ghost, who was rendered intangible after an accident involving her father, Elias Starr. That's a connection between her and Janet because she needs Janet's energy from the quantum realm to make her tangible again, be able to be touched and not be constantly warping and changing between those two states. And then, of course, you have Hope and Janet's relationship being mother and daughter, and Hank as well trying to find Janet in the quantum realm. And then you have Scott and Janet's relationship, where when Scott went to the quantum realm in the first Ant-Man film, became entangled and kind of like share a mind in some sort of a way. So I really love the connections that they have. It really adds a new layer to the hero-villain relationship that we haven't really seen since maybe Thor and Loki. I love it a lot. And building off of relationships, I really like Scott and Cassie's growth in a relationship. We know it's strong from the first Ant-Man film, but it's really, really prominent here when Cassie, covers for Scott when the FBI are coming to his house. When in the opening scene where they're, the opening scene with those two, I should say, when they're trying to steal the treasure and, they find this giant ant, Anton. I really love it. It's so cute, and I love it. The chemistry is just amazing. The chase scene at the end, amazing. I loved that chase scene. Because think about it, it sounds so Marvel when you describe it. You have cars shrinking and growing to knock other cars off the road, a giant Pez dispenser, Scott Lang as Giant Man riding a car like rollerblades, all while trying to get this lab that contains a quantum tunnel that was built by giant ants. Like, how could you not think that's cool? That's so Ant-Man and so just Marvel Comics. Just the absurdity of what the sentence I just said just makes it that much better. And on the topic of Sonny Birch, because he was involved in the chase scene, it does kind of feel like he was shoehorned in to have another party chasing after the lab, but I don't really blame them for that because it fits. Sure, you have Ghost going after the lab because she needs Janet, but then you also have Sonny, who has no interest in Janet, but has interest in making money off the lab, who someone offered him like $1 billion or something to get that lab. So it kind of makes sense that a sleazy salesman would be involved in this chase. So I'm not really, blaming them for kind of just, sticking him in there to have another party in the chase. But for such a lighthearted film, they sure picked one hell of a post-credit scene to have at the end of the film. After such a tragic movie like Infinity War, we needed a nice, uplifting, lighthearted film, and then they end it with that. I saw this movie 3 times with 3 different groups of friends, and every time that post-credit scene started, my heart was just pounding faster and faster and faster. But that's what it was meant to do. And then Scott, Janet, and Hope all get snapped by Thanos. It was crazy after such a lighthearted film. And then, of course, you have the ant playing the drums. Yeah, that was really necessary. Come on. I'm not going to blame them for that. I thought it was a cute little scene. All in all, this film is solid. It's on par with its predecessor in Ant-Man. Funny story about the Ant-Man movies, but I'll get to that when I get to that. So, without further ado, let's move on to the next movie.
Number 15. Ant-Man.
So, it's time for that story I just brought up. So, when Ant-Man was being advertised and there were commercials for it, it was about to come out, I was going to give this movie no chance. I had no desire to see it because I thought it was going to be stupid, a lame addition to the MCU, and just like, why would they bring this character in? They had so many great characters added. One day my dad caught it on demand, watched it, and then he came up to me and was like, hey Jay, you really have to watch it. This is a really funny movie. It's great. And reluctantly, I agreed and I watched it. And thank God I did, because this film is so much fun. I had no intentions of seeing it, and I'm happy I did, because it's out of nowhere. It's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. Not as successful, but it's like, who thought this was going to be good? This mainly due to Paul Rudd playing Scott Lang. He's so funny in it, and it's a great foil to Hank Pym, who's kind of like a more calculating, stern, serious character. So it's a great foil. And also, Michael Douglas playing Hank Pym is a great addition to the MCU, much like Anthony Hopkins, because the MCU is frowned upon a lot by not having, decent actors, or it's not taken seriously. But when you have Anthony Hopkins and Michael Douglas, you kind of have to think twice about that. I also really love the heist feel of this film. What I mean by that is they have to stop Darren Cross, Hank Pym's pupil, from making more shrinking tech and selling it to Hydra agents left over from Winter Soldier. And so basically they have to implode his lab, and it's up to Hank, Hope, and Scott. Hope is Hank's daughter. And they have to stop him from doing that because he's not really right in the head, because he was lied to by Hank about Ant-Man being just a myth, and he's like became swelled with power and just wants to sell this to the world and make money off of it, which is not what Hank wanted it to be in the first place. Yeah, this kind of feels like an Iron Man rehash where there's a hero and a villain with similar powers fighting, and also the same motive. They want the same tech that the hero has. But the heist feel, kind of makes up for it. And also, the final battle in Cassie's bedroom is amazing. Because we've had fights in the streets, in cities, on the public highways and things like that, in space. But we've never had something as simple as a little girl's Thomas the Tank Engine playset. And just chaos ensues. They're using the rug as kind of cover. Thomas gets enlarged by one of the discs. It was just amazing, because that's an Ant-Man film for you. Fighting on things that you wouldn't be able to fight on because you or me would crush it because we're too big to be fighting on that. But having two miniature men fighting on it is just incredible to me. Yeah, they get very sloppy with their lore, I should say, because it's like when things shrink, they keep their mass, and yet Hank has been carrying a tank with him the entire film. If objects kept their mass, Hank wouldn't be able to lift this thing because it's a tank. It's the same thing with Ant-Man and the Wasp. They wouldn't be able to roll that building around. The building would keep its mass. But I'm not going to criticize the film for that, because if we looked at every plot hole the Marvel Cinematic Universe proposed in their own rules, every single one of these films would be trash. All in all, this film came from behind and surprised everybody at being an actual decent film that no one expected would have anything worthwhile to see. And I am so happy that I'm a fan of this film and have no qualms seeing it over and over and over again. Whenever it's on cable, I have to stop and watch, just to kind of pay tribute to a movie that I was going to give no shot to. And yeah, Ant-Man. See it before you judge it.
Number 14. Doctor Strange.
Okay, where do I begin? Sorry, I was just getting lost on how unbelievable the graphics are in this film. The animation, the effects. It's so trippy. It's like you just hit a blunt without hitting a blunt. The cities are folding in on themselves. Cars are coming out one end and then coming out another. They're growing extra parts to their, infrastructure and just folding in, kind of like Tetris blocks. Hallways are being warped. The floor is opening up. People are running on the ceilings, going through portals to Mount Everest. It's a mind trip. The Ancient One knocks, Doctor Strange into a multiverse, and it's just colors and hands growing on hands and, dead bodies reaching out for Strange and, dragging him to, basically hell. It's a mind hell. It's a mind fuck. I mean, pardon my French, but I had to say that. But with all that, the film, again, kind of feels like Iron Man. Not in the sense where someone wants to use the tech, but you have a snarky, ignorant man who has to learn that you're not top dog. There's so much you don't know about. Even if you think you're the smartest person on planet Earth, you have to realize that you're maybe not as great as you thought. Stephen Strange gets into a massive car accident, rendering his hands useless, and why that's so important is because he's a surgeon. A very good surgeon. But he's also very snarky and narcissistic because he will not take any patients that wouldn't boost his credibility. So if it's an easy fix, he's like, nah, I don't want that. It's not gonna work. Or if he feels that you're not treatable, then he really won't take you, because it's like, me, the great Stephen Strange, not cure a patient? Can't have that. So it's fun to see him get his comeuppance a lot in this film, because he talks down to so many people, and then just to be, smacked in the face saying, wake up, you don't know everything. Like Mordo says, forget everything you think you know. And boy, howdy does he do that by the end of the film. Hey, Marvel Studios. You have the Ancient One, a Tibetan monk. And you cast Tilda Swinton. What? It's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's fine if you want to make her a woman. Fine. But there's plenty of Asian actresses in Hollywood that would be amazing for the part. It's such a baffling, cast choice. I mean, she did great. Don't get me wrong. She did fantastically as the Ancient One. I really felt the performance, but just what? What? Also, critical thing, introducing magic to the MCU because, we've had tech, mutations, enhancements. We've never had magic in terms of powers. So, I'm happy with it. I'm really happy that they introduced this hero and introduced this type of fighting style into these films. So, Doctor Strange, solid film, but prepare to see things that you didn't think you'd ever see ever because it's just so trippy.
Number 13. Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, you poor, poor movie. You poor movie. You had to follow up the Avengers. I feel so bad for Age of Ultron because it gets pooped on so much by everybody. I've seen countdowns online where it's ranked like number 20. No way is this movie, deserving of number 20 on a ranking. I'm not trying to tell people how to rank their movies, but clearly they're just using the fact that this didn't live up to the Avengers to just crap on it. Yeah, it didn't live up to the expectations. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they had to nerf Ultron unbelievably, but it still doesn't make this a bad film. Just based on the merits of the interactions of the 6 Avengers, just makes this movie so great. They all work off each other so well. And if Ultron was the way he was in the comics, you couldn't have a movie because he would decimate everybody in 10 seconds flat. Great Avengers movie, everyone's dead. I also love the additions of Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Vision, although in Quicksilver's case, as fast as he runs, that's how fast they killed him off. But they're still great additions to the movies, and they're enhanced. Because they're not mutants, because you can't say that, because of, Fox and all that. But I love, one of the best moments in this film is when Vision lifts Thor's hammer, because there's a whole scene in the movie where they're trying to lift it, and obviously they can't, because they're not worthy, except for maybe Cap, but sorry, there's something in my throat. I also love how Hawkeye finally gets an arc, because he's always been just such a throwaway character in the first Avengers movie. He was hypnotized for most of it, and now he finally gets an arc, and he has a family now. And for anybody who thinks that he can't be the anchor for the Avengers, let me spin you something real quick. Tony Stark, raised rich, raised brilliant, never had to worry about pretty much anything. Everything was given to him. I know he was shipped off to boarding school, but he was still a genius. He creates things. He invents things. He has so much money he doesn't know what to do with it. Bruce Banner, exposed to Gamma and has basically a rage beast ready to split from him any second. Captain America, crashes his plane in 1945 and wakes up in 2011. Not normal. Natasha Romanoff. Yes, while Clint Barton is also an assassin, Natasha was raised to be an assassin. Clint didn't come out of the womb and it was like, oh yeah, no, we gotta train him how to kill people. Natasha, yeah, she had to literally be trained to kill people. She was sterilized so that she would be focused on missions, not, can I start a family? I would love to start a family, but now I can't because I gotta focus on this mission. That's not normal. And then Thor is a god. So Hawkeye is the most grounded character in the Avengers. So it may not seem like he's the anchor for these characters, but he damn sure is because he's definitely the most grounded in reality. He has a family. He has a life. And yeah, so anybody who says that can't be, there's your explanation. And he also has the greatest speech in any Avengers movie thus far with the whole "You are an Avenger" speech to Scarlet Witch. you also can't really blame Scarlet Witch because Ultron just said that he was going to destroy the Avengers, and they wanted to do that to get revenge on Tony Stark for killing their parents, when it was really just his tech used to, attack Sokovia. But all in all, it's still a great film. It has they do fight an army of faceless robots like they did in Avengers. And it might be a little too excessive, like in the Avengers, but it's still awesome. You can't tell me that when they did that slow-mo circle around of all the characters beating on Ultrons, you weren't getting hyped. You weren't getting excited about that. Yeah. Age of Ultron, I feel bad for you that you had to follow up Avengers, and then you're also succeeded by Infinity War, but you still held your own, and you're still a solid film. Good for the whole family.
Number 12. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Here's another example of a film that didn't live up to the first movie's legacy. Guardians of the Galaxy was the most out of left field film you could have in a franchise. And then here comes this film that just dominates everything. Everyone loves it. Guardians 2 is coming out, and everyone's so excited to see our favorite band of misfits travel through space again. And while it was a very, very solid film, it just didn't live up to what we wanted from the first one. But there are definitely so many things great about this film. I love the whole Peter Quill daddy issue that happens throughout this entire film, whether it be between Ego or Yondu. Ego does a great job luring Peter into a false sense of security before finally, snapping him into reality, saying, yeah, no, I killed your mom, which, why would you say that? I know they had to say it so the plot could continue, but it's still just like, any sensible person wouldn't be like, yeah, by the way, I killed your mom. Yeah, isn't that cool? I love Yondu's story arc in this film, where we thought Yondu was just like, this blue asshole in the first Guardians movie. He actually really has a character arc. He was, disowned by the Ravagers because he broke code. And he just wants to be accepted by them. And he wants to do right because he wants to protect Peter. But he can't tell the guys that because that would make him soft. Then a rebellion happens, and he has to, kill all the men that he's worked with that rebelled against him so easily. And he finally realizes that I have done wrong all my life. I need to sacrifice myself to make sure everyone here is, can get back safely, be together as a family. And I'm telling you, that final scene with that song and Yondu's funeral, it's just, it got to me. It got to me. I welled up a bit. I didn't cry, but I was about to, because it was just so powerful. It's such a powerful scene because Chris Pratt's performance when they're flying through space and Yondu puts the spacesuit on him was brilliant, and it really lends itself to the scene after because you're still thinking about his reaction to it, how genuine it felt. And just topple all that together with the whole family aspect, the Guardians are a family, and it's just such a touching scene, and I loved it. I love the movie. It had a really great story as well. Mantis is a fantastic addition. Again, another great female character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Nebula and Gamora's relationship is also one of my favorite conflicts in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's great to see that get addressed here, and even see a little bit of uphill movement. This film also distinguishes itself by barely having any references to the outer Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is great because, the Guardians are so far off. They're not taking place on Earth. They're taking place in space. So I feel like that lends to it just fine. And that end credit scene where it teases Adam Warlock, y'all know he's coming in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So look forward to that. And there you have it, part 1 of my ranking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, and make sure you guys click the bell icon so you guys can get notified when I upload part 2 of the video. Share it with your friends. I want to spread this around. And yeah, until next time, guys, that is a wrap.